Uh, yes, that is me, more than 50 years ago. Good morning. My name is David Schindele. I'm a retired Air Force captain, and I'm very proud to have served my country. The report released by the Office of Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, on June 25th this year stated the following. UAP, or UFOs, may pose a challenge to U.S. national security. Coming from an important agency of the U.S. government, this statement is very important and very significant. ODNI is the first government agency to ever publicly suggest that national security might be challenged or threatened by unidentified aerial phenomena, or by what the public has always referred to as UFOs, or real objects, which is now inclusive to the government term of aerial phenomena. This summary paragraph from the ODNI report reflects the essence of the report content. Let me point out that it notes that safety concerns primarily center on aviators contending with increasingly cluttered air domain, and that there is a national security challenge if they are foreign adversary collection platforms. Let me be very clear. The ODNI report did not effectively address the substance of UAP, UFO concerns, as specifically directed and requested. The request by the Senate Intelligence Committee to ODNI was to, quote, submit an intelligence assessment of the threat posed by unidentified aerial phenomena, UFOs, and the progress the Department of Defense Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force has made in understanding this threat. The ODNI report provided no indication that historical data will be accessed, which resides deep inside some intelligence agencies, including the CIA, and those agencies that ODNI gave its report to. ODNI even admitted, quote, the data set described in this report is currently limited primarily to U.S. government reporting of incidents occurring from November 2004 to March 2021. There has been a long history of UFO incidents and encounters, with much investigation of them from 1947 and even earlier. The U.S. Air Force began its official investigations in 1948 with Project Sign, then Project Grudge in 1949, then Project Blue Book in 1952, until the Air Force took their investigations underground in 1969. For over 20 years, the Air Force was concerned with encounters by the military, with great reason. There is a great deal of evidence from the past, consisting of witness testimony and documentation, which indicates that for many decades, the military has been harassed by UFOs. The objects have shown capabilities far beyond what science, physics, and the technology of today can explain, and they seem to be controlled by highly sophisticated intelligence. They have demonstrated a maneuverability in flight that no human pilot could possibly endure. Now I'm about to inform you of one of those prior UFO incidents that did indeed impact national security. It was an incident that I was involved with, where I had to deal with its ramifications. In September of 1966, I was a Minuteman ICBM launch control officer and deputy commander of a launch crew stationed at Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. I was involved in a UFO incident at that time where a flying object tampered with and took down a total of 10 nuclear-tipped ICBM missiles by rendering them unlaunchable. It all began for me early one morning when having breakfast and listening to a television newscast by a TV station in the town of Minot. The newscaster announced that residents of Mohall, North Dakota, saw strange lights west of town that night, which they attributed to a UFO. This caught my attention because I was scheduled to replace the current Minuteman launch crew at November Flight Launch Control Center, which is 3 miles west of that town. When I attended the pre-departure crew briefing on base that morning, where 15 two-man officer crews would meet each morning prior to going to their assigned launch control centers, we were told that a few missiles at November Flight had gone off alert, but nothing more was said on this. After the briefing, several missile crews came up to me and mentioned about what they heard on the news that morning, and my crew commander also acknowledged he heard the news. When my crew commander and I arrived at November Flight Launch Control Facility, which was a drab green nondescript building surrounded by a high fence and located 37 miles from base, my commander entered through the front door of the building to debrief security guards. Upon entering the rear door of the building, I was met by the site manager, who was a tech sergeant, and he asked if I heard what happened overnight. I responded by stating I knew that residents of Mohall reported sighting strange lights during the night. He then took me to the day room and its west-facing windows, and he described to me what he and others had seen that night. He described a large object just outside the perimeter fence with bright flashing lights, but without noise, and it hovered close to the ground. I estimated the object to be 80 to 100 feet wide, based on how he gestured its size with his outstretched arms. After many minutes passed, the object then glided to the north end of the building and out of sight. But it then became visible to security guards in the control section of the building. The object, which hovered just outside the main gate, was slightly blocked from view because of the large garage located inside the fence to the right. With security and other personnel viewing the object through security control windows, and with security personnel preferring to remain in the building, it was just a short period of time before the object abruptly took flight, and it disappeared within a second. There were 8 people topside within the building who saw this object, and it included 6 security personnel, a facility cook, and the site manager. They all confirmed it was a terrifying experience to behold, which I could tell by the tone in their voices and the expressions on their faces. They knew the object was not a helicopter, and base choppers normally did not fly at night, especially without notice to the facility. My commander and I then entered the elevator next to the security center, which lowered us 60 feet below ground to where their hardened launch control center capsule was located. When we arrived, the blast door to the capsule was open for us, and we walked in. We were greeted by the 2 officers of the launch crew who were waiting for us, but we also immediately glanced at the launch control console located at the opposite end of the room, which displayed the status of the 10 nuclear-tipped missiles. With the missiles positioned in hardened underground secure silos located many miles away in all directions from us, the lights on the console indicated they were all off alert and unlaunchable. The on-duty crew told us that the missiles went down when the flying object was hovering next to the main gate and above the underground capsule. The crew was communicating with the head security guard topside during the entire time of the incident. The crew discussed this situation extensively with my commander and I, and then we all went through the formalities of crew changeover. When the crew left, we closed the blast door behind them, and then my commander and I settled in to monitor our 10 inoperable nuclear-tipped ICBM missiles. All the missiles indicated guidance and control system malfunction. At other times during crew changeover at launch centers, we might note 1 or 2 missiles down for scheduled maintenance. But never had we seen a situation like this. It was all new to us. And it was so very disturbing and troubling to us when attempting to comprehend the reality of the situation that had come our way. But we also had a forewarning, and that was followed by the emotions exhibited by airmen topside and by the officer crew below ground briefing us on actions they took during the incident. The next morning, after we were relieved by another crew, we arrived topside. I attempted to further question the head security guard about the incident and on what he saw. But he interrupted me and said he was instructed not to talk to anyone about it. And then my commander turned toward me and said he had received a call overnight from the Office of Special Investigations, the OSI, while I was on a rest break below ground. My commander was told by the OSI that we were to forever keep our lips zipped about the incident. And he was told that, as far as you're concerned, it never happened. We were even instructed to never talk to each other again about the incident. In effect, the Air Force confirmed to me the seriousness and reality of the UFO incident. Ironically, this was verified by the fact that my crew commander and I were never questioned, never interrogated, never debriefed on the incident, and neither was the other crew. It amazed us that we were not questioned. Instead, we were only told in no uncertain terms to keep quiet. We were never told what the security classification of the incident was. We were never instructed or trained on what to do if another incident should ever happen again. And other missile crews were never informed of our incident or of the other UFO incidents in the missile field at the time. We missileers all possess top secret clearances, and we were under constant review and training to ensure that our technical skills and ability to follow complex procedures met high stringent requirements. We are all well educated, psychologically profiled, and responsible for our nuclear security and operational readiness and maintaining our nation's primary line of defense. It was a serious game of nuclear deterrence, and we were trusted to launch our missiles upon receipt of a verified and authenticated order. We knew it involved the preservation of freedom and liberty for the American people. And we knew an attacking aggressor would think twice when facing us in a tense Cold War situation. We are proud to serve our country in that way. Many airmen involved with this incident have passed away, including my crew commander. But the commander of the crew that my commander and I relieved, he is still around. After suggesting many times to him that he come forward as I have, he said, "You need to understand that after I returned to base after the incident, I was ordered to sign a document stating I would forever remain silent." His trepidation about that and his personal integrity keeps him silent to this day, 55 years later. We are all proud of our integrity, and the Air Force relied on us because of it. However, the Air Force has not been honest with Congress and the American public. When the Air Force closed Project Blue Book in 1969, after my incident in 1966, and many others incidents, the conclusions of the project were, number one, there was no evidence that sightings categorized as unidentified were extraterrestrial vehicles. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong slide here. How do I get back? Keep going. Okay. Okay, now I forgot where it was. Unfortunately, I'm reading the script here, but okay, when the Air Force closed Project Blue Book in 1969, after my incident, the number one conclusion was there is no evidence that sightings categorized as unidentified were extraterrestrial vehicles. And number two, no UFO reported, investigated, and evaluated by the Air Force gave an indication of a threat to our national security. The U.S. Air Force currently states on its website that since the termination of Project Blue Book, nothing has occurred that would support a resumption of UFO investigations by the Air Force. Let me get the slides, please. Right here. The Air Force continues with this proclamation that UFOs do not exist or pose a threat to national security. I was held hostage to both those lies for about 40 years. And it is past time for the truth to come out and be revealed. Congress and the intelligence community have a responsibility here. And others must be released from the burden of holding back the truth. On February 28, 1960, an article in the New York Times featured Roscoe H. Hillenkotter, who was installed as the first director of the CIA on September 18, 1947. Prior to becoming the CIA director, Hillenkotter was director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Group, which was during the time of the famous Roswell incident in July of 1947. The article in the Times began as follows. The Air Force has sent its commands a warning to treat sightings of unidentified flying objects as serious business, directly related to the nation's defense. In other words, national security. But you'll note that there was no notice to Project Blue Book, Congress, or the public on this by the Air Force. And then that article quoted Hillenkotter with the following. It is time for the truth to be brought out in open congressional hearings. This was in 1960. Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about the UFOs. But through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense. To hide the facts, the Air Force has silenced its personnel. That was in 1960, but 6 years after that statement, I was one of those that Hillenkotter was referring to as being silenced. His prophecy. That has now changed. I stand here before you today. I respectfully suggest that Odie and I take another serious look at its report, because I am willing to testify on all of this before a congressional hearing. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.